Policy is policy, Patricia said, shoving a citation right against my chest while I was literally signing my wife Elena in at the ER triage desk. The kind of move you don't forget. You know what I mean? Your wife can't park at the curb, she barked, waving her HOA badge like it meant something in a hospital. Move the car, or we tow. Her voice as cold as the fluorescent lights overhead. Elena's breathing was shaky, 30 weeks pregnant and cramping, but Patricia didn't blink. I just stared at her, at the paper in my hand, trying not to lose it. I'm a licensed paramedic, I said, and this is an emergency intake. EMTALA requires uninterrupted access to care. And that curb out front? It's a hospital drop zone, recorded by 3 cameras. For a split second, her smug little grin faltered. Just for a second, but I caught it. HOA rules apply, she started, but I cut her off. Not in here. Not when someone's life is on the line. The triage nurse caught the vibe, slid the clipboard away from Patricia's reaching hand. Tiny win. Honestly, if you've ever felt that surge of adrenaline when you finally stand up to a bully, buckle up, because this story's about to become a masterclass in how to fight back. I set the citation down without breaking eye contact, just letting the tension hang there. 15 years working medical, charting vitals, calling codes, convincing death to take a walk, writing up reports that prosecutors comb through line by line. My dad's old medical kit sits on a shelf in my home office, still smells faintly of antiseptic and leather, a promise I keep. Elena squeezed my hand, her face drawn. We'd planned for bed rest, gentle nights, none of this. We hadn't planned for an HOA president tailgating us to the ER, shouting through the windshield while my wife tried not to scream. But seconds matter when you're counting contractions and you're terrified. And for us, every second meant one thing. That stubborn, defiant little heartbeat we saw on the ultrasound last week. A triage nurse looked up, caught the scene, and yanked the clipboard away from Patricia's reach. Another win, small but sweet. I kept my voice calm, low, asking Patricia for her name, stating the time, 8:12 p.m., making it official. The whole lobby's under video surveillance. 30 days worth, just in case anyone gets any bright ideas. I let Patricia stew as the nurse whisked Elena away for vitals, documenting every detail. The clock on the wall, the angle of the cameras, the chain of faces witnessing Patricia's little power play. You don't have to raise your voice to win in a courtroom. Sometimes you just line up the facts and let the silence do the rest. Daniel Reyes, I said to registration, paramedic, husband. We came in because contractions spiked, 3 minutes apart. We parked at the curb because if I'd tried to park in the lot, we would have lost time we didn't have. The registrar nodded, already dialing security. Preserve the entrance footage, I said. Triage desk. Curb. I'll need copies. For a second, the world narrowed down to just Elena's pulse on the monitor, the memory of my dad's hand on my shoulder when I first passed my certification. He told me I'd spend my career carrying strangers through their worst minutes. He never mentioned fighting off neighbors with a clipboard complex. Patricia lingered in the doorway, phone up, narrating to no one. I ignored her. I had my priorities, my wife, my family, my legacy. I had the kind of training that turns chaos into process, fear into facts. Security finally stepped in, took Patricia's name, and asked if I wanted to file a report. Hell yes. If you've ever seen a bully get blocked at the door, you know how satisfying that is. Where are you watching from, anyway? Because by the time Elena's wristband was printed, the HOA had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. They'd followed us into a place where life comes first, not some petty authority. They thought a citation would scare me. They thought a threat would move me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Patricia made her move in a hospital, where federal law trumps HOA pettiness every time. I drove home later, past perfect hedges and identical mailboxes, that feeling of pressure in the air, everyone peeking from behind their curtains. The neighborhood looked pristine, pressure-washed and manicured, all to mask the resentment underneath. Patricia ruled by fear. Just last month, she fined a veteran for hanging his flag at an angle, cited a couple for their kids' chalk art, even threatened foreclosure over a wheelchair ramp that didn't match community standards. Always smiling as she did it. Rules are rules. I parked at my townhouse, streets silent but watchful. Porch lights on in rows, people peering out, already whispering about the showdown at the hospital. I knew it would travel faster than any posted notice. That's how it goes here. Order on the surface, fear underneath. My dad's medical kit still waited on its shelf, and I realized Patricia's brand of control was about domination, not service. But federal policy, real law, wasn't hers to wield. That was the crack I'd use. At dawn, I walked the street, clipboard in hand. Not a citation, just a log. I noted every ramp, flag, car an inch over the line, stories stacking up, every one a fracture in Patricia's grip. Some neighbors warned me to lay low, others whispered thanks. Their silence was fear, but their eyes said, "We see you." That's when I saw Mark Dillon, retired security guard, HOA badge on his belt even on his day off. He'd been in the hospital lobby, seen everything, but kept quiet, his conscience burning a hole in his pocket. Patricia thrived because people stayed silent. But silence breaks when the evidence lines up. With the video, the witnesses, and the little pile of fines she'd stacked against my door, I started building a narrative the court would care about. Patterns, not gossip. Inside, I filed my notes next to Dad's kit. Elena's voice drifted from upstairs, home on bed rest, the stakes written in every heartbeat echoing through the house. I wrote up the report like a paramedic chart. Facts, times, witnesses, no embellishments needed. Patricia had supplied all the details herself. That evening, I found Mark Dillon at the clubhouse, a mug clutched tight, HOA badge face down beside it. He looked at the poster on the wall. Integrity, community, all the words Patricia trampled on daily. I sat across from him, slid the report over, didn't say a word. His hand trembled, coffee spilled. Conscience, not caffeine. The ramp, the fines, Elena clutching her stomach. He couldn't unsee it. I told him, "You know what you saw? There's a difference between rules and harm." He didn't answer, but his body said plenty. The next morning, a new violation was taped to my door. Elena's temporary ramp, circled in red ink. Neighbors watched from the sidewalk, eyes wide. Patricia was testing us, seeing if we'd bend. But every notice was just another brick in my case. I kept stacking them. That afternoon, Patricia called a special board inspection at the pool, her little stage, clipboard in hand, flanked by her sycophants. "Mr. Reyes," she called out, "cumulative fines now exceed $5,000. Continued noncompliance could result in legal action, including foreclosure." I stared her down. "You followed me into a hospital. That's a crime, and it's on camera." Board members shifted, uncertainty on their faces. I showed her my log, dates, fines, absurdities stacked tall. Order isn't about crushing people. It's about respecting them. The confrontation at the pool told me everything. Patricia's hunger for control was endless, but it blinded her. And blindness makes you sloppy. So, I took the fight to the place I knew best, the hospital's administrative wing. Karen Lee, the risk management officer, listened as I laid out what happened. The citation, the interference, Elena's medical crisis. She pulled up the security footage right there, grainy, black and white, but clear as day. Patricia, waving her citation, Elena gripping her stomach, the triage nurse pushing Patricia away. The chain of custody form slid across the desk. I signed it. The evidence was locked in. Driving home, I passed those perfect lawns and driveways, but I saw them different now. Each one hiding a story, a resentment, a neighbor just waiting for someone to make the first move. Mark Dillon was outside by the mailboxes, eyes darting, the weight of silence finally showing. Inside, Elena rested, and I lined up the evidence. Notices, the chain of custody form, my dad's kit, a case building. Patricia, though, wasn't done. That night, she held a town hall at the park. All performance, all fear. "Some neighbors think rules don't apply to them," she warned, voice brittle. "False reports will be dealt with aggressively." But her ER stunt was spreading. People whispered. Mrs. Larkin squeezed her grandson's hand. I stayed at the edge, just watching Patricia try to talk her way out of what she'd done. Mark stood nearby, arms crossed, no longer her guard dog. After the meeting, a nurse from the hospital found me. "I saw the tape," he whispered. "She shouldn't have been there." Not testimony, but momentum. Patricia's power was slipping, and she didn't see it. The cracks widened the next night at the maintenance shed behind the tennis courts. Mark Dillon waited for me, the floodlights buzzing overhead. He handed me a battered notebook, his personal log. Every fine, every overreach, every time Patricia used the board to settle scores. "What happened at the hospital?" he said. "It broke the line. I can't carry it anymore." He was shaking. I took the notebook, years of quiet rebellion, now in my hands. The next morning, I went to the courthouse, pulled the HOA bylaws, found all the places Patricia had skipped procedure, invented authority, denied medical accommodations. Every page was proof she'd built her power on intimidation, not process. At a cafe downtown, a neighbor spotted me reading the files. "Good," she whispered. "Someone has to stop her." That word, someone, reminded me what this was about. Every neighbor who'd ever been fined, shamed, or silenced. Back at the firehouse, I rehearsed my testimony, facts, sequence, credibility. In court, I'd need more than outrage. I need to sound like the calm paramedic I was in the field. I visited neighbors, Mrs. Larkin, the veteran, others, just to listen, just to ask if they'd stand up when the time came. Fear weakens when it's shared, and little by little, the silence in Willow Bend started to crack. Then, Patricia made her big move. A thick envelope slid under my door, threatening foreclosure. She thought she'd cornered me, but her notice skipped steps, broke the HOA's own rules. I walked into the HOA office, sat across from her and her board, and slid the bylaws across the table. "You skipped the process," I said. "Your own enforcer documented it." The board members shifted, doubt in their eyes. "If you want to go to court, let's start with the hospital footage. The court will see obstruction, not order." I left her with the notice, now evidence in my case. The real showdown came at the quarterly meeting in the school gym. Patricia gave her usual speech about order, about rules protecting our investments. But when it was time for homeowner concerns, I stood up, folder in hand. "My name is Daniel Reyes. I'm a paramedic, a husband, a father-to-be. And I need to address what's happening here, not just to me, but to all of us." I laid out the evidence. Mark's notes, the chain of custody from the hospital, the bylaws she ignored. Gasps from the crowd. Heads turned. Mrs. Larkin cried openly. The veteran sat straighter. Patricia's face paled under the lights. And then Mark Dillon stood, voice clear, trembling, but true. I was there. I saw Patricia try to stop emergency intake. I kept notes. This has gone too far. The room erupted, shouts, demands, outrage. Patricia's board crumbled right there in front of everyone. One member moved to suspend enforcement against my family pending legal review. The other seconded. Patricia tried to speak, but her words were drowned by the crowd. Years of fear collapsed in a single night. Afterward, neighbors gathered around, shaking my hand, whispering thanks. Willow Bend felt different. Not perfect, not healed, but on its way. Later that night, sitting in my office, Elena sleeping safely upstairs, I touched my father's medical kit and felt, finally, like I'd done my job. Not just as a paramedic, but as a neighbor, as a husband, as a man who stood up when it counted. Through the window, Willow Bend's perfect lawns lay quiet under the moonlight. But for the first time in years, they felt like ours. And if you've got your own story about standing up to a bully, drop it in the comments. Because these fights aren't over, and your voice might be the one that finally tips the balance. So, what do you think? Does standing up for what's right justify taking on the whole system? Or is order more important than justice? I want to hear your story.